This was the 10th time this month I'd kicked my boyfriend out of the bedroom to sleep on the couch. Ever since we'd been together, my sleep quality had plummeted dramatically. "Aria, I'm sorry, please open the door," came his muffled voice from the hallway. "If you keep making noise, I'm sending you straight back to the ocean." I threatened. Immediate silence. I breathed a sigh of relief. You see, Kai isn't human. His true form is an orca whale, those highly intelligent marine mammals they call the wolves of the sea. This whole crazy story started a year ago. My best friend Emma worked for this incredibly wealthy tech company, and to reward their employees, they organized a luxury cruise trip where staff could bring family members. She excitedly signed me up. As someone who could happily stay home for a month straight, a cruise seemed like the perfect low-energy vacation option, basically just changing locations to continue being a homebody. So I agreed to go with her. The first night had a welcome banquet, and everyone was having a blast. When it ended, Emma didn't return to her room. By the end of the party, she was completely drunk in their CEO's arms, mumbling complaints about stupid men while he looked both helpless and completely smitten as he carried her. Being a good best friend, I took the hint and tactfully returned to my room alone. I slept wonderfully that night. Just as dawn was breaking, I went up to the deck feeling refreshed, hoping to catch the sunrise over the ocean. The sun had barely peaked half its golden yolk above the horizon when I heard angry footsteps behind me. "Aria Chen, you absolute traitor." Emma's voice was hoarse and furious, startling me. I turned to see her hair disheveled, eyes puffy like she hadn't slept all night. Oh no, this had gone too far. I hadn't expected her CEO to be such a... Well, clearly they'd been up all night. "Emma, let me explain." I started backing away, feeling guilty. I was already standing near the deck railing, and after just a few steps backward, I hit the barrier. With a creaking sound, the railing suddenly tilted outward, and I lost my balance, falling toward the ocean. What the hell? Who would have thought this luxury cruise ship had safety issues? Ah, glub, glub, glub. My back hit the water hard, and salty seawater rushed into my nose and mouth. Only when the stinging pain filled my nostrils did I tragically remember I can't swim. Struggling in the ocean was incredibly difficult. I could barely hear Emma's screams for help above. One thought flashed through my mind: this is it. Then the cold water enveloped me as I sank, and I lost consciousness entirely. I don't know how long I was out, but I gradually became aware of something heavy pressing on my chest, making it hard to breathe. As consciousness returned, the dull pain throughout my body intensified. Feeling bright light against my eyelids, I struggled to open my eyes and look down at my chest. Though my vision was blurry, I could make out a man's head resting sideways on my chest. Wait. A man? Ah. Pervert! My anger spiked instantly. Despite feeling like my body was falling apart, I grabbed his hair and pushed him away, then struggled to put distance between us. The rough sand beneath me scraped my hands. Ow! The man yelped in pain. Only then did the memories of falling overboard flash through my mind. Had someone rescued me? Looking around, I found myself on a beach with rolling waves just a few steps ahead. I glanced down, my clothes were half dry, but still intact. Then I looked at the man rubbing his head, and oh my God. He was completely naked. Messy hair from where I'd grabbed it, striking but somewhat innocent features, and a perfectly sculpted body without an ounce of excess. I quickly averted my eyes. I rapidly shrugged off my jacket and threw it to him to cover the important bits. He looked at me with confusion, but obediently let the jacket drape over him. With the distracting parts covered, I took a deep breath and started questioning him. "Did you rescue me?" He looked puzzled, tilted his head thoughtfully for a moment, then seemed to understand and nodded. "I saw you fall down." I pushed you up to surface, he said with an odd, halting cadence that was difficult to follow. Are you not American? I asked in surprise. How far had I drifted while unconscious? 0. 6. He stared at me blankly, and I realized something seemed off about him. Those pure, innocent eyes looked almost childlike, too clean and simple for an adult. While we stared at each other, my stomach made an untimely rumbling sound. He curiously looked down at my belly, and I instinctively hugged my knees to hide the embarrassment. Who knew how long I'd been unconscious? Of course I was hungry after not eating for so long. Suddenly, he turned and crawled toward the ocean, disappearing from sight in moments. Watching his awkward crawling style worse than a dog paddle, I couldn't help but wonder, didn't this guy know how to walk? Why did he have to crawl? After sitting quietly for a while, my jumbled thoughts began to clear. Looking around, I realized I was stranded on a small island. I had no idea how far I'd drifted while unconscious, and my pockets were completely empty. Licking my dry, cracked lips, I felt worried. Was I going to have to survive in the wilderness? While I was grateful to be alive, how was I going to get home? I racked my brain trying to remember survival shows I'd watched. Fresh water. To survive, I needed to find fresh water first. Noticing some tall palm trees in the distance, I perked up. Without fresh water, coconut water would be the perfect substitute. Just as I was thinking about how to find survival resources, I heard a sharp squealing sound, like a kid's scream. Following the sound, I saw waves churning in the distance. A dark tail slapped the water surface, and a flat stingray suddenly flew through the air in an arc. Just as it was about to fall back into the sea, a massive black and white head emerged from the water, caught the stingray in its jaws, and disappeared beneath the surface. Holy crap! Was that an orca? I'd only seen this in documentaries, never thought I'd witness it in person. But then I worried about the man who'd gone into the water. What if he was in danger? He might be my savior, after all. I nervously watched the water, afraid to miss any movement. Soon, I saw a black fin swimming toward shore, getting closer and closer, until it revealed a smooth, shiny black back in the shallow water. Was this fish crazy? Did it want to beach itself? I couldn't help but facepalm. If it got stranded, I didn't have the strength to push it back to sea. But when the next wave rolled over, the large fish vanished completely. With a splash, the strange man suddenly emerged from the water, something long clenched in his teeth. As the water got shallower and he couldn't swim anymore, he resumed that dog paddle crawling motion. The object in his mouth looked long and flat, dragging behind him and making his crawling more difficult. I walked over curiously to see what it was. What I saw left me stunned. It looked exactly like the stingray the orca had caught. Bigger than a bathtub, with distinctive bite marks on its body. Hungry. Eat. 0. 6. The man released the stingray's tail and gave me a goofy grin, showing perfect white teeth. I was speechless. All the fantasy novels I'd stayed up reading flashed through my memory, especially those about transmigration to beast worlds with one woman and multiple mates. My mind was reeling with disbelief. With a trembling finger, I pointed at him. Are you that orca? Yes. He nodded vigorously, his brilliant smile making his teeth almost blindingly white. In that moment, my 20-plus years of biological understanding shattered into pieces. Oh God! If I was truly evil in my past life, please let me face consequences then, not torture me like this in this life. I'd thought I'd just been stranded on some deserted island, and if I could survive, there might be a tiny chance of getting home. But if this was really some kind of transmigration, getting home would be like reaching for the stars without a rocket. Cut off from phones, internet, and everything connected to modern civilization, I was basically defenseless. A simple cold or infected wound could kill me. Screw it. I give up. I'm completely done. Having lost hope of returning home, I collapsed on the beach like a dead fish, staring blankly at the cloudless blue sky where everything seemed frozen in time. I don't know how long I lay there before someone shook my arm. An anxious face appeared above me, blocking the sunlight. No, die. Hungry, eat. He seemed to think I was dying and was incredibly worried. I'd been staring at the light too long and my eyes felt dry, so I closed them to rest. But within 2 or 3 seconds, something soft covered my lips, and I felt water droplets on my cheeks. I opened my eyes suddenly to meet his reddened, moist gaze. Our lips were touching, and a strange warmth flowed into my body. As this warm current spread through my limbs, the dull pain throughout my body began to fade. Was this some kind of superpower? I was secretly amazed. I pressed my hands against his chest and gently pushed to create some distance, then sat up. He stared at me blankly, tear tracks still visible on his face, his eyes glistening. He looked like he desperately needed a hug. This reminded me of the puppy my grandfather used to have. It would whimper and cry when it wanted milk. Oh no! I was the one who got kissed, but somehow I felt like the one taking advantage of him. I'm not dead, just resting for a bit, I said, blushing with embarrassment. He kept looking at me with those teary eyes. Feeling uncomfortable under his gaze, I was about to say something to break the awkward atmosphere when, "You're not, hey?" Before I could finish, he lunged forward, catching me completely off guard and bear-hugging me to the ground. So heavy. Was this guy made of lead? I wanted to cry. Not dead, not dead. Ha ha ha. I could hear the pure joy in his voice. Before I could catch my breath, everything spun around as he rolled us both across the beach. I was getting a real washing machine perspective, and it was awful. Stop, 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 stop. I couldn't take it anymore, any more spinning, and I'd lose my breakfast. When his grip loosened slightly, I flipped over and pinned him down, pressing my hands to the ground to hit the pause button. He tried to reverse our positions. Don't move. I commanded firmly, still dizzy. He immediately went still. As my rationality gradually returned, I realized I was lying on top of him, feeling his heartbeat and the rise and fall of his chest through the jacket. If he were a regular human man, I might have been more self-conscious. But knowing he was actually an orca, I felt less guarded. I'd once looked up information about orcas out of curiosity. Adult orcas supposedly have intelligence equivalent to 15-20-year-old humans, and wild orcas living in pods have virtually no natural predators. There are basically no records of wild orcas harming humans. I didn't know about this particular one, but if we could keep communicating like this, my chances of survival here were pretty good. At least if I was going to die, I'd die with a full stomach. With that decided, I jumped up. Can you walk? I asked, ignoring certain distracting areas and focusing on his face. Before he could respond, I crouched down and tried to help him up by supporting his arm. He was quite cooperative. Understanding what I wanted, he didn't make me work too hard and leaned on me as he slowly tried to stand. Only then did I realize that even before he was fully upright, he was already almost a head taller than me. He had to be at least 6'3". Once he could stand steadily on his own, I let go and gestured for him to stay put. I walked over to retrieve my fallen jacket, shook the sand off it, and tied the sleeves around his waist. It barely fit around him. Phew, finally, no more R-rated scenes. He was indeed smart and quickly learned to walk on land. I planned to take him to the palm trees to see if we could get some coconuts for hydration. We'd barely taken a few steps when he tugged at me with a hurt expression. Following his gaze, I saw the stingray lying belly up, very much dead. Hungry, hungry. Eat. He pointed at my stomach, then at the stingray. You're the one who's crazy. I was speechless. I'd completely forgotten about that. Apart from my existing knowledge that stingrays were protected animals and shouldn't be eaten, I genuinely couldn't handle raw meat. I didn't even touch sashimi at Japanese restaurants, so this was a major problem. Unless I could make fire. Even burnt meat would be better than raw meat for me. But obviously, I couldn't let him know I didn't appreciate the prey he'd caught for me. I reached out and soothingly patted his head. I really like this gift. We'll deal with it later. Understanding my meaning, he stopped fussing about the stingray and let me lead him away. When we reached the palm trees, I understood what so close yet so far really meant. Good news, there really were coconuts, lots of them. Bad news, the trees were way too tall. I could see them but couldn't reach them. Want? He asked, seeing me staring longingly at the coconuts. He squinted up at the palm tree. I nodded. Can you climb trees? He shook his head. I was a bit disappointed and couldn't help licking my increasingly dry lips, practically drooling over the coconuts. Since the treetop coconuts were out of reach for now, I could only hope to find some ripe ones that had naturally fallen to the ground. I carefully searched the surrounding area. Hey! There was one floating in the nearby water. Just as I was about to go get it, I heard a loud thunk behind me, followed by rustling leaves and another heavy impact. Crack! I stiffly turned around just in time to see a palm tree at least 16 inches in diameter, heavy with coconuts, slowly tilting and then crashing down with a thunderous boom, kicking up a cloud of sand. I couldn't help but shudder. What terrifying strength! The culprit looked at me expectantly, his face full of "please praise me" energy. Coconuts. So many reachable coconuts. This unexpected windfall hit me like a pie falling from heaven. Unable to contain myself, I ran over and jumped up to hug his neck, planting a big kiss on his cheek. I love you," I shouted. This tree had at least 20 coconuts, enough to keep me from worrying about water for a week. I then released him and happily rushed to the fallen tree crown to count them. Lost in my joy, I didn't notice him standing there dazed, face flushed, touching his cheek thoughtfully. After my excitement died down, I felt depressed again. How was I supposed to open coconuts without a knife? Once again, feeling how useless I was, I squatted down in despair. Then a hand reached over from beside me, easily plucked a coconut, and with 2 punches broke through the hard outer shell. With a strong pull, he easily peeled away the thick, fibrous husk. I watched his series of actions in amazement. When he smashed the hard shell without even getting red knuckles, I could only think of one phrase: maximum boyfriend power. He even carefully picked off small pieces of broken shell and threw them away before presenting the opened coconut to me. I weakly said, "Thank you." Taking the coconut, I chugged it down. This was exactly what rain after a long drought felt like. Every cell in my body was screaming for more, just a little more. After finishing it in one go and still wanting more, another opened coconut appeared in front of me. "Aren't you drinking any?" I asked curiously. He just shook his head. That made sense. Orcas are apex predators. Why would they eat plants? After I took the second coconut, he moved to crack open more, but I quickly stopped him. "Don't open any more for now. We'll take the coconuts back with us. If we open too many and can't finish them, they'll go bad." Though there were several more palm trees here, I didn't know how long I'd be stranded. Better to conserve resources. So I had him remove clusters of coconuts and tear off some large leaves to bring along. We slowly walked back together. Walking on the beach with a less empty stomach was quite pleasant. The warm midday sea breeze, accompanied by the sound of waves, and me holding a coconut and sipping it slowly. Despite this being a survival situation, it had the relaxed feeling of an island vacation. Of course, I knew this was all because he was here. "My name is Aria. Do you have a name?" I looked at him sideways. "Yes. In your language, it should be. His speech was already oddly cadenced, and the name he said at the end was completely incomprehensible to me. I tried to repeat the last part of what he'd said, and an idea formed in my mind. How about I call you Kai? I quickened my pace to stand in front of him, looking directly at him. He tilted his head, still looking somewhat confused, and tried to copy my pronunciation, Kai? You see, it means ocean in Hawaiian, and it sounds strong. I went on explaining at length, while he listened quietly, his eyes focused intently on me. Eventually, his stare made me self-conscious, and I laughed awkwardly. Don't you like this name? 06. Was I being too talkative? Like name, he said, his expression becoming more serious. Before I could smile, he added another sentence. Like you. Like Aria. Boom! All my blood seemed to rush to my head, my cheeks heating up, my ears burning. In my entire life, this was the first time someone had confessed to me, and it was an orca. I fell silent, not knowing how to continue the conversation. It wasn't that I discriminated against him for being a whale, but we'd only known each other for less than a day, and we were different species. If he were a human male, I definitely suspect he was some smooth-talking player. But with him, did he even understand what like meant? Like, really like. He seemed to sense my emotions and grew anxious. Before I could react, he dropped the coconuts he was carrying and suddenly pulled me into his arms. The unexpected movement made me drop my coconut too. He held me tightly while I struggled to escape, but it was useless. I gave up resisting. I couldn't overpower an orca that could knock down palm trees. My line of sight only reached Kai's chest level. To avoid the awkwardness of staring at his pecs, I turned my head sideways, and my ear inevitably pressed against where his heart was located. It sounded like thunder. My thoughts drifted, and I remembered waking up with him lying on my chest. He was probably listening to my heartbeat to make sure I wasn't dead. Aria, talk with me more. I can practice. I will adapt to your language. I can do it, he said. Compared to when I first heard him speak, his pronunciation had improved dramatically, even though his speech still wasn't fluent. Were orcas really this good at learning? I was secretly amazed. I knew Kai had many mysteries about him, but now wasn't the time to investigate. Okay, I'll talk with you more to help you practice, I agreed. When people are in desperate situations, emotions are easily amplified, and the heart is at its most vulnerable. Regardless, he was currently the only one I could depend on. Having a powerful protector who could communicate was infinitely better than being alone here waiting to die. Kai was like the piece of driftwood I desperately grabbed while drowning, my only hope for survival. Something in my heart began to soften. His embrace really was warm. That afternoon, I spent time in conversation practice with Kai, and gradually his speech became much more fluent. Suddenly, I heard a strange buzzing sound that was getting louder. Like a giant fly, then more and more like a lawnmower. It sounded familiar. I tried hard to remember. That's it. I jumped up, scanning the sky, and quickly found my target. Just as I thought. Against the backdrop of the setting sun's glow, I saw a helicopter flying toward us. Hey! Over here! I could no longer contain my excitement and waved frantically at the helicopter. Even though I knew the people up there couldn't hear me, I still jumped and shouted with joy. From falling overboard until now, my emotions had been like a roller coaster, and this was probably my way of releasing all that tension. The people in the helicopter spotted us and slowly landed on the distant beach. Just as I was about to run over, Kai grabbed my hand. Don't go. Don't leave me. He pleaded with me. His nervous, hurt expression was exactly like a pet about to be abandoned by its owner. My heart ached, and I touched his face soothingly. I won't abandon you. Come with me. I want to confirm some things. He stared at me for a moment, and after making sure I wouldn't abandon him, he tightly held my hand and walked toward the helicopter with me. A person in camouflage uniform had gotten out tall and sturdy. "Are you Miss Aria Chen?" He was holding a photograph, looking at me, and comparing it to the photo. "Yes," I nodded. "I'm with the rescue team. Mr. Blake commissioned our rescue squad to search the islands in this area for you." "Mr. Mash." Blake, that was Emma's boss, the guy she was currently cold warring with. My heart, which had been suspended in worry, finally felt at peace. This was still the world I knew. I was so moved I wanted to cry. "What's today's date?" I needed to confirm how long it had been since I fell overboard. After the rescue team member told me the date, I breathed a sigh of relief. Only 3 days, hopefully my parents didn't know about this incident. Maybe I could keep it from them? "Can we leave now?" I continued asking, but I got a negative answer. Unfortunately, among the helicopters sent out for the search, mine only has space for the pilot. However, after I send back your location, a yacht should arrive here by tomorrow morning to pick you up. Though I was disappointed, I was still very grateful. The man returned to the aircraft, and I thought he was leaving, but surprisingly, he came back carrying a bunch of supplies. "These are emergency sleeping bags and some food and water to get you through one more night," he said. He glanced at my hand holding Kai's, his eyes moving between us with a slightly odd expression. "With your boyfriend here, you should be safe," he added. I immediately felt my face heat up and self-consciously let go of Kai's hand, gesturing for him to take the supplies. "Is there a lighter in there?" I'd been fantasizing about fire to cook the stingray meat properly. The rescuer looked confused. "No." The little flame of hope in my heart instantly died, and my face fell. "But I can give you mine." He pulled a cheap lighter from his pocket and handed it over. I quickly accepted it and gratefully shook his hand. "Sir, you're such a good person. I could grill fish tonight," I thought happily. After seeing off the rescuer, I felt elated. Not being transported to another world was wonderful. 6. I could go home and continue my hermit lifestyle, enjoying the happiness of modern civilization. Just as I was about to see what food was in the package, I noticed Kai seemed unhappy, his lips pressed tightly together, head down and silent. "What's wrong?" I asked in confusion. He glared at me. "You actually touched him." I was speechless. I looked at him quietly while he glared back, like an angry pufferfish. The more I looked, the cuter he seemed. I couldn't help but break character. "Are you jealous?" I asked, laughing so hard my stomach hurt. He looked at me laughing breathlessly, completely confused. "What is jealous? Can you eat it?" Ha 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 ha. I was done for. This guy was such a treasure. After finally returning to normal, I explained the concept of jealousy to him. He had an aha moment, and I looked at him teasingly, expecting him to be embarrassed. Instead, he said seriously, "Yes, I am jealous. I can't stand other males touching you." I stopped laughing. Were orcas really this possessive? They're supposed to be matriarchal social creatures living in pods. How did this male develop such exclusive consciousness? As evening approached, after many failed attempts, I finally managed to start a fire using dry branches and leaves I'd collected. Kai seemed uncomfortable with the heat from the flames and sat far away watching me. I turned several sticks that were stuck diagonally in the sand, each skewered with pieces of stingray meat. As the high temperature cooked them, they began giving off a delicious aroma. I opened the package the rescuer had left, which contained energy bars, canned meat, and 2 bottles of water. I beckoned Kai over, and he immediately came obediently. I tore open the canned meat packaging and handed it to him. He curiously accepted it and examined it. "This is edible human food." "Try it," I encouraged. Kai tentatively took a bite, his expression somewhat puzzled. This was completely different from anything he'd eaten before. After tasting it properly, his eyes lit up and he took a big bite, his eyes practically sparkling with happiness. I figured the fish was probably done and pulled out 2 sticks with fish chunks for Kai. Without thinking, he immediately put them in his mouth, moving so fast I couldn't stop him. Of course, the fresh from the fire fish burned his mouth, making him grimace. I quickly went to check his lips were a bit red. I grabbed a water bottle, had him tilt his head back and open his mouth, then poured water in to cool it down quickly. He might have gotten some water in his windpipe because he shook his head and sneezed several times. Even so, he didn't let go of his fish. I was both annoyed and amused. "No one's competing with you for it," I said, patting his back to make sure he was okay before sitting back down. I took a piece of fish, blew on it to cool it, and slowly began eating. Even without seasoning, the fish was tender and naturally salty, with the oils cooked out and even the bones crispy and soft. Being able to eat hot cooked food was pure bliss. Kai learned to copy me, blowing on his food before eating, looking very satisfied. I only ate 1 piece before feeling full. The rest all went into his stomach. Feeling a bit greasy, I had Kai open 2 coconuts, and we each held one to drink. With our bellies full and nothing else to do, it was time for the main event. I finally couldn't resist asking Kai about all the mysteries I'd been wondering about. Although I didn't understand some of what he said, based on my interpretation, the summary was Kai wasn't the only orca who could transform into human form. His entire family could do it. Kai's family was different from other orca pods. Their family heritage contained an ancient secret. According to his description, there were once ruling deities of the sea. When the sea god still lived in this oceanic realm, his family served as one of the sea god's attendants, and the sea god had granted them the ability to transform their bodies. Later, something happened that caused the sea god to disappear and the temple to be sealed. All the sea god's attendants lost their divine marks and could no longer maintain human form. Gradually, those races that had once served the sea god either forgot their ancestors' glory as time passed or went extinct. Only his lineage of orcas and 1 other species retained their family traditions and didn't forget. Due to human activities, ocean ecological environments had worsened in recent years. Decades ago, his family had wandered the oceans searching for clean habitats, but accidentally discovered the location of the long-lost sea god's temple, where the sea god's residual divine power directly restored their family's transformation abilities. I struggled to digest this massive amount of information. It was as incredible as Arabian Nights. If I hadn't personally witnessed Kai transform from orca to human, I would have thought anyone telling me this was insane. "What about your family? Don't orcas usually travel in pods? How are you here alone?" I asked curiously. "They think the ocean is too polluted. Ever since some place started dumping terrible wastewater into the sea a few years ago, they just decided to transform into humans and go on land." "I didn't want to leave. I can live independently anyway," he said. When he said the last part, he seemed a bit awkward and defiant, but clearly he was hiding some information. I didn't press further, only lamenting that human damage to the ecosystem was so severe it was forcing even fish onto land. The temperature dropped sharply at night. I lay in the sleeping bag but couldn't fall asleep at all. Looking at Kai, who was still sitting by the fire occasionally adding dry branches, with only my jacket around his waist. I couldn't help asking, "Are you cold?" He nodded and sniffled pitifully. Inexplicably, I felt a kind of maternal tenderness toward him. "Come here, let's lie down together to stay warm," I said, patting the empty space beside me and scooting over. This was a double sleeping bag. He immediately crawled in, and suddenly I felt the reasonably spacious sleeping bag become quite cramped. Kai didn't have any unpleasant odors, just a faint ocean scent. This was my first time sharing a bed with a male while conscious, and I felt a bit awkward, not daring to look at Kai, keeping my gaze fixed on the sky. Away from city lights, the night sky here was incredibly brilliant. Counting the days, today should be around the new moon in the lunar calendar. A crescent moon hung in the sky, complementing the starlight beautifully. Accompanied by the rhythm of ocean waves, I oddly thought of the phrase, peaceful times. Though I'd known Kai for such a short time, he gave me a sense of security I'd never experienced before. But in our earlier conversation, Kai had said he didn't want to leave the ocean. Even his family couldn't persuade him to leave, could I? Thinking about this, I sighed and couldn't help turning away from Kai, curling up with my arm as a pillow. In a muffled voice, I said, "I have to leave tomorrow. Take care of yourself, and if there's a chance, I'll come visit you." As soon as I finished speaking, Kai pulled me tightly against him. As if stimulated, he spoke urgently. "Aria, don't abandon me. I want to be with you. I just want to stay by your side." His voice became choked with emotion. "But you belong to the ocean. Even your family couldn't get you to leave," I said, my heart aching and tears flowing involuntarily. I wanted to be with him too, but I couldn't sacrifice his freedom to drag him into an unfamiliar world. "I'm willing. As long as I can be with Aria, I can go anywhere." My heart jolted and my mind went blank. I was momentarily speechless. Not getting an answer, Kai seemed afraid I would run away. His arms around me suddenly tightened, making it hard for me to breathe. I tapped his arms. "Let go, you're suffocating me." Hearing this, he immediately loosened his grip. "Sorry, Aria, sorry." "Woo-woo, I don't want to leave you, woo-woo." His head buried in my shoulder, and I felt cool moisture seeping into my skin. After catching my breath, I turned to face him. His eyes were red and tears kept flowing. I reached out to gently wipe away his tears, and he continued sniffling while staring at me. What kind of crybaby was this? I felt somewhat helpless. "Have you really thought it through about coming with me?" I looked seriously into his eyes. "Yes." Wanna go with Aria." He nodded vigorously. "All right then. Since your family is on land anyway, you can survive on land too." Hearing me agree, his face lit up with joy. "But if someday you can't adapt to life on land and want to return to the ocean, you must tell me." "You can't go.